He called my wife trailer trash in front of the entire neighborhood, loud enough to draw laughter, sharp enough to make her hands tremble. I saw her pride shatter in real time. She didn't cry until later, but I never forgot his smirk. But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The sun bore down on the bake sale like it had been paid to spotlight every imperfection. Folding tables sagged under platters of picture-perfect pastries, store-bought cupcakes in pristine plastic domes, sugar cookies with gold leaf sprinkles, and tartlets that looked too delicate to eat. Ellie's lemon bars didn't have that kind of polish. They were real. You could smell the zest in the air, see the hand-pressed crusts, the uneven powdered sugar like fresh snow. They didn't look like status. They looked like care. She stood behind the table in that faded apron her mother gave her years ago, the one with the sunflowers and the tiny tear at the seam. Her hands fluttered nervously around the display, straightening napkins, adjusting signs she had written in her best cursive with a pink Sharpie. Every gesture was precise, deliberate. I knew why. She didn't want to be the girl from the trailer park today. She wanted to be the woman who finally made it, the kind that belonged here. Then came Carl Whitaker. He moved through the crowd like he owned the air, tall, tan, and entitled, with mirrored sunglasses that never quite stayed on his forehead. His wife had left him last year. Gossip said she conned him with a realtor half his age. But Carl still strutted like a rooster in a henhouse. When he reached Ellie's table, he didn't look at her, not really. His eyes scanned the tray, squinted at the lemon bars like they were foreign objects. Then, slowly like he'd rehearsed it, he gave a dry little laugh. Didn't know we were letting in trailer trash now. It hit like a slap. Conversation stuttered to a stop. Somewhere behind us, someone snorted. Someone else laughed. Nervous? Guilty. Ellie froze. I saw it happen in real time, her spirit recoiling behind her eyes, her knuckles whitening around the spatula. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. But something inside her folded in on itself, quiet and invisible. A wound you wouldn't see unless you knew where to look. I stepped forward, heat rising in my chest like a fuse catching fire. But she caught me before I could speak. Her grip was steel. Her voice was a whisper only I could hear. Don't make a scene. That's what they always taught at her. Keep your head down. Be small. Be polite, even when they humiliate you. But as I looked at Carl's smug grin and the way people were already pretending it didn't happen, I realized something. She wasn't the one who should feel ashamed, and he wasn't going to get away with this. The night Ellie told me she wanted to leave, something shifted in the marrow of me. She sat on the porch swing in a hoodie 2 sizes too big, sleeves bunched around her fists, shoulders trembling under the weight of Carl Whitaker's words. Her eyes were red, not from the crying itself, but from the way she tried to hide it, pressing her knuckles into the corners, biting her lip until it bled. That kind of grief didn't come from one insult. It came from a lifetime of being told you're less. That's when I knew this wasn't about lemon bars or bake sales. It was about something deeper. It was about erasure, about someone like Carl, born with a silver spoon and a mouthful of poison, believing he had the right to decide who got to feel worthy. I didn't tell Ellie what I was about to do. Not yet. There's a kind of justice that speaks louder when it walks in silence. By the time the dew dried off the grass the next morning, I was already digging. Carl was sloppy, arrogant, predictable. He'd layered his empire like it made him clever. Properties tucked inside shell companies, offshore accounts, loans stacked against inflated valuations. But every facade has a crack, and Carl's was greed. He never thought someone would look close enough to see the foundation crumbling beneath him. It didn't take long to find the first property. The Craftsman, 2 streets down, rented out to a revolving door of tenants Carl barely maintained it for. Mold in the basement, termites in the rafters. I sent an inspector anonymously. Offered cash within the week. Closed in 10 days. Then the Colonial across from it. Then the modern ranch with the Tesla charger he didn't know was outdated. I didn't show up. I sent lawyers, agents, shell corporations, names he'd never seen, LLCs registered in Wyoming, Delaware, Nevada, all above board. all invisible. Then came his house. He didn't want to sell. Of course he didn't. It was the last castle on a hill of sand. But everyone has a number, and Carl's was exactly twice what his ego could refuse. I made the offer quiet, aggressive, immediate. The wire transfer hit before the ink dried. He signed away his pride with a Mont Blanc pen, never even looked at the buyer's name. That was the moment I realized something. You don't fight fire with fire. You buy the whole damn forest and wait for the wind to change. The sound of saws and hammers started at 6:45 every morning. Sharp. Not by accident, construction crews rolled in like clockwork, trucks rumbling down the manicured cul-de-sac where silence had once been sacred. The same silence Carl Whitaker used to enforce with HOA fines and passive-aggressive emails about maintaining standards. But now his old house, his former kingdom, was a flurry of purpose. Drywall came down, plumbing rerouted. The wine cellar he'd once bragged about at every board meeting was stripped bare and reimagined as a sterilized grooming station. I made sure we kept a few of the bottles, though. They now lined the window of the intake office, empty, corks twisted out, labels faded, preserved like museum relics of a forgotten tyrant. By the third week, the custom-built dog kennels were in. Each had heated floors, orthopedic bedding, and nameplates hand-painted by Ellie. The backyard was converted into a run big enough for a greyhound to stretch its legs. We put in tunnels, shaded corners, agility ramps. A rescue coordinator we hired, Monica, a former vet tech, called it the Ritz-Carlton for strays. Then came the sign, 20 feet wide, double-sided, mounted on stone pillars, and lit at night by soft LEDs. Whitaker Rescue and Rehab Center for Abandoned Dogs, in elegant serif. Below it, a bronze plaque, founded with love and purpose. No dates, no names, just a message. This place is not about you anymore, Carl. When the sign went up, it was like a spark in dry grass. Carl drove by that same afternoon. First slow, then slower, then again in a different car. On the third pass, he stopped entirely. Got out, stood there for a full minute, staring up at the lettering with a hollowed look, like he was reading his own obituary. Ellie was on the porch. She had Scout, one of our rescues, in her lap, a senior golden with a gray muzzle and eyes like melted caramel. She saw Carl, she smiled, and she waved. The look on his face, like swallowing glass. He didn't wave back. He went home and took to Facebook instead, unleashing a tantrum about the decline of standards and the outrageous stench of mutts and lowlifes. But the tide had turned. His comment section lit up like a bonfire. Dozens of neighbors chimed in. Stories about Carl berating landscapers, humiliating teenage lifeguards, threatening fines over Christmas decorations. Turns out all it took was one spark, one person to push back. And suddenly the whole neighborhood remembered they had matches too.
The sky was cloudless the morning of the ribbon cutting. Bright, defiant sunshine spilled across the lawn, as if even the weather had shown up to bear witness. Rows of folding chairs faced the porch, where a thick red ribbon stretched across the newly installed gate. Dogs barked playfully in the distance, some in the run, others poking curious noses between the slats of the fence. It wasn't just a shelter anymore. It was a symbol. Ellie stood at the center of it all. She wore the same apron Carl once ridiculed. Only now, it was a badge. The faded floral pattern was streaked with flower and paw prints, a heart-shaped burn mark near the hem where she'd once leaned too close to the oven. Her hair was pinned up, curls tumbling loose around her face, cheeks flushed with the kind of pride no amount of money could buy. The mayor said a few words. The local councilman praised the initiative, but the moment that stole the morning came when a young reporter, barely older than a college student, stepped forward and asked Ellie the simplest question. Waitu. She didn't miss a beat. I grew up in a trailer off Route 17. It was leaky, cold in the winter, boiling in the summer. But we had this mutt, Milo. Found him behind a gas station, ribs poking out. Everyone told us to put him down. But he'd curl up at my feet every night and look at me like I was made of gold. When I came home crying from school, He didn't care that I wore hand-me-down shoes. He never asked why we paid with food stamps. That dog saved me, so I figured maybe I could return the favor, one dog at a time. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was reverent. Eyes welled. The camera panned to the crowd. Some clapped. Some simply stood there, struck by the quiet force of it. Within 24 hours, the video was everywhere. National outlets picked it up. Donations flooded in. Cash, supplies, leashes, dog beds. A retired vet offered free medical exams. A local bakery dropped off treats for the volunteers every morning. The neighborhood, once Carl's petty empire, became a hive of generosity. And as for Carl, he vanished like a smudge in sunlight. Word got around. He'd packed up, tail tucked, and taken a job in Ocala selling used RVs to retirees who didn't care who he used to be. Ellie still makes her lemon bars for every fundraiser. They sell out before the second table is stocked. People bring Tupperware now, hoping for extras. And when someone new asks who built the shelter, I just glance at my wife, standing there in that apron, laughing with a pack of muddy rescues, and say, it started with a man who didn't know who he was talking to, and ended with a woman who never forgot who she was.